Grant Mercer pushed a cream-colored envelope across his desk before Evelyn Carter had fully closed the office door. "You're fired." For a moment, she heard only the soft rattle of the air vent above him. 21 minutes earlier, she had been helping Arthur Bell near the east exit. Now her employee badge had been disabled, her health insurance would end with the month, and Grant was already holding out his hand for her keys. Evelyn stayed standing. "What reason are you putting on the form?" "Physical interference with a resident safety intervention. Insubordination. Creating a hostile environment." A woman from corporate human resources watched from a tablet propped beside Grant's telephone. She had introduced herself as Ms. Keller, but her face was no larger than a playing card. Evelyn looked at the black dome camera visible through Grant's open blinds. It hung over the east hallway, pointed straight toward the place where Grant had grabbed Arthur. "Play the footage." Grant's hand stopped between them. "This isn't a trial." "Then it should take you 30 seconds to prove what you just wrote." Miss Keller leaned closer to her screen. "Mr. Mercer, is there footage?" The question irritated him more than Evelyn's refusal. He tapped his keyboard, entered 2 passwords and pulled up the security archive. The recording began without sound. Arthur stood beside the emergency exit in his brown cardigan, pulling once on the horizontal bar. A silver chain looped through the handles. In his left hand, his red call pendant shone with a steady amber light. Grant entered from the dining room side. He pointed toward Arthur's apartment, then closed his hand around Arthur's wrist. Arthur tried to pull back. Grant reached for the pendant. Evelyn appeared at the far edge of the picture. She moved between them, turned her body toward Arthur, and raised one open palm toward Grant. Grant stepped forward. Evelyn did not touch him. She kept one hand on Arthur's wheelchair and used the other to return the pendant Grant had knocked to the floor. The clip ended with Evelyn standing like a wall between the two men. Miss Keller spoke first. "That recording does not support an allegation that Miss Carter assaulted you." Grant's jaw tightened. "I didn't say assault. You said physical interference. And that's exactly what she did. She overrode a direct safety instruction while a confused resident was agitated." Evelyn pointed at the frozen image. "Arthur wasn't agitated until you grabbed him. And that exit was chained. Maintenance secured it for less than 10 minutes. The alarm light was dead. You're not a fire inspector." "No. I'm the person who noticed." Grant turned the monitor away as if removing the image could restore his authority. The allegation on the form changed before Evelyn's eyes. He drew a line through physical interference, wrote insubordination during safety response, and initialed it. Miss Keller said the termination would be reviewed. Grant said it was effective immediately under the facility's management policy. He slid a second envelope across the desk. 4 weeks of severance. A neutral reference. Payment for unused leave. In return, Evelyn would agree that Arthur had appeared disoriented, that Grant had acted for his safety, and that she would not discuss internal resident matters. "You can leave here with a clean record," Grant said. "Or you can make this uglier than it needs to be." Evelyn thought of the rent due next week. She thought of the prescription she refilled every month and the unopened electricity bill on her kitchen counter. Then she looked through the blinds. 2 staff members were leading Arthur away from the East Hall. The red cord of his pendant lay crooked against his cardigan. What happens to him? His daughter and I will discuss a more appropriate placement. When? That is no longer your concern. Evelyn left both envelopes on his desk. In the parking lot, she sat in her 12-year-old sedan and wrote down everything she could remember. 6:39 photograph of the chain. 6:42 hallway confrontation. Camera East 2. Amber light on Arthur's pendant. Grant's right hand around Arthur's wrist. She attached the photograph from her phone to an online state complaint. In the box asking whether the danger was continuing, she typed one sentence. The door can be unchained before an inspector arrives, but the decision that put it there is still inside the building. Before submitting, she added a request that the state preserve the East 2 camera recording. Her thumb hovered over the button. Filing would end any chance of taking Grant's severance quietly. It might also follow her to every care facility where she applied. Evelyn pressed submit. Carla Bell arrived at the coffee shop carrying her purse against her ribs like a shield. She did not sit until Evelyn moved the termination envelope out of sight. "Grant said you upset my father," Carla began. "He said Dad was pulling on a fire door and you encouraged him." Evelyn placed her phone on the table and opened the photograph. The silver chain was clear. So was the dark rectangle where the alarm indicator should have glowed green. The time in the corner read 6:39 Monday morning. Carla stared at it, then pushed the phone back. "He said maintenance was working on it." "At 6:39? Things break at 6:39. They don't need a chain to fix an alarm." Carla's fingers tightened around her coffee. She was 50, only 4 years younger than Evelyn, but exhaustion had drawn pale half-moons beneath her eyes. "You don't know everything that's been going on with Dad." "Then tell me." "He's been missing appointments. He called me at 2 in the morning because he thought it was afternoon. Last week he accused a housekeeper of moving a picture he moved himself." Evelyn waited. "None of that turned the chain into a piece of maintenance equipment." Carla lowered her voice. "Grant recommends the secured memory wing at Willow Creek. There's a room open. They can move Dad Friday morning." "Friday?" "It's a voluntary transfer." "Voluntary for whom?" Carla flinched. Evelyn regretted the words as soon as they left her, but she did not take them back. "I'm trying to keep him safe," Carla said. "You got to clock out. I'm his daughter every hour of the day." Evelyn turned the phone around again. "Ask him what happened before you sign anything." They met Arthur in the public courtyard beside Magnolia Ridge just after lunch. Grant had told the receptionist Evelyn could not enter the building, but he could not keep Arthur from walking outside with his daughter. Arthur wore the same brown cardigan. The red pendant rested against a row of wooden buttons, its light now green. "They fixed it," he said when Evelyn looked at it. "What was wrong with it?" "It worked everywhere except that hall. Or they made it not work. I pressed it and waited. First time I counted to 60 twice. Second time I sang 'You Are My Sunshine' all the way through." Carla glanced at Evelyn. "When was this?" "At night." "Which night?" Arthur rubbed a thumb over the red cord. "Tuesday. Maybe Thursday." Carla exhaled through her nose. Evelyn sat beside him. "You play cards on Tuesdays, right?" "Pinochle." "And on Thursdays?" "Carla brings my laundry." "Did you see the chain after cards or after Carla brought your laundry?" Arthur looked across the courtyard toward the east wing. "After cards. But not one Tuesday. A string of them." They built the dates from his routines. Tuesday card games. Thursday laundry. Sunday baseball on the radio. Arthur could not name each calendar date, but he remembered the chain scraping the handle when the custodian's cart passed. He remembered that the overnight aid changed twice during those weeks. He remembered pressing the pendant 11 times because he had started keeping count on his fingers and then on the sugar packets from breakfast. "Why didn't you tell Carla?" Evelyn asked. "I did." Carla shook her head. "You told me the place was locking you in. I thought you meant the coded front doors." "I said east door." "You also said it happened every night, and now you're saying Tuesdays and Thursdays." Arthur's shoulders folded inward. Evelyn reached for him, but he pulled his hand away. "Don't pet me because she doesn't believe me." The rebuke landed cleanly. Evelyn placed both hands in her lap. "You're right." Arthur stood and crossed the courtyard to the metal gate that separated the garden from the east walkway. He tested its latch, then returned. 32 years I looked after Jefferson Elementary," he said. "Boilers, door closers, broken windows, children who flushed things no plumber should ever meet. Every August before the teachers came back I walked every exit. You don't chain a door people need when they're scared." Carla's expression softened, but only for a second. "You retired 15 years ago. A door still knows what it is." "I'm not saying you don't know a door. You keep saying what you're not saying." Evelyn watched the two of them struggle with the same fear from opposite sides. Arthur feared that a mistake in one room would follow him into every other room. Carla feared that trusting one clear answer would make her ignore 10 uncertain ones. Neither fear answered why the pendant had failed. She asked permission before checking the back of his pendant. A white label carried a serial number in small black print. She copied it onto her timeline. By the time they left the courtyard, the practical goal was clear. The transfer was scheduled for Friday at 10. A regular state complaint could take 10 business days. Evelyn had 4 days to show that the danger was not a single photograph of a door during maintenance. That evening, she spread 3 sheets of paper across her kitchen table. On the first she wrote Carla, Arthur's care notes, incident report, pendant activity. On the second she wrote Lena, exact nights, staffing instructions. On the third she wrote State, Preserve East 2, inspect the door, compare timestamps. She called the number printed on the back of Arthur's pendant from an old orientation booklet she had kept in her work bag. A recorded menu explained that resident activity could be exported by device serial number, but requests had to come from the facility or an authorized resident representative. Evelyn wrote the phrase down for Carla. It was not access, but it was a route to access. Next she opened the photograph's information panel. The phone had stored the time, date, and location. She emailed the original file to herself and copied it to a flash drive. If Grant made the chain disappear, the photograph still needed to remain more than an image passed from one phone to another. Her phone rang before she finished. Grant's voice was even. Your visitor access has been suspended. I'm not an employee anymore. Arthur asked to see me. You are contacting a vulnerable resident during a placement assessment. He's not a package. Stay away from the property, Evelyn. If you interfere with Friday's transfer, I will include it in the professional complaint. She sat back. What professional complaint? The one I'm required to file when a caregiver encourages unsafe resident behavior. He ended the call. Evelyn drew a 4th line beneath the 3 names on her paper. Grant expects me to be afraid. She was afraid. The useful part was knowing exactly what he expected her fear to do. On Tuesday morning, Evelyn waited across the street while Carla entered Magnolia Ridge with Arthur's signed request for his records. Grant met Carla before the receptionist could call anyone. Through the glass doors, Evelyn watched him guide her toward his office with one hand hovering near her elbow. He wore the concerned expression he used with families when bills increased or residents fell. 40 minutes later, Carla returned with a thick envelope. He gave me everything, she said. He had given her 23 pages of medication lists, meal notes, sleep observations, and reports describing Arthur as repetitive, suspicious, and intermittently disoriented. The incident report said he had attempted to force open a secured door while maintenance tested the alarm. It said Evelyn had escalated him by contradicting the director. There was no pendant activity. Did you ask for the electronic audit? Evelyn said. He said call buttons aren't part of the medical record. Did you use the serial number? Carla gave her a sharp look. I did exactly what you wrote. Evelyn softened her voice. Then we ask again. Arthur owns the information about when he called for help, even if the facility owns the system. At noon, Arthur signed a second request specifying the pendant serial number, dates, status changes, and administrator actions. Carla sent it through the resident portal and copied the system vendor's records department. The portal promised a response within 2 business days. Thursday, Carla said. If they use every hour, then we use ours. Lena Price chose an all-night diner 20 miles from Magnolia Ridge. She arrived in navy scrubs and kept her coat on. I have 30 minutes, she said. If Grant checks the parking lot cameras, I was never here. Evelyn did not take out her phone. I'm not recording you. That's what people say before they put the phone face down. Evelyn placed both empty hands on the table. I need dates. Nothing you didn't see. Lena stared at the sugar dispenser. The East alarm started chirping 3 weeks ago. Then it stopped making any sound. Grant said the replacement board was back-ordered. Who put on the chain? Maintenance left it in the closet. Night shift used it. On whose instruction? Lena's eyes lifted. You said dates. You're right. Which nights? Lena named her shifts. Sunday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday. The other night aide covered Monday and Thursday. From 10 at night until 6:30 in the morning, one of them fastened the chain and made 15-minute rounds. Why not station somebody at the door? Evelyn asked. Because Grant cut the second overnight position after Mrs. Vale wandered out in January. He said the rounds were enough. A resident wandered, so he reduced overnight coverage? Corporate said occupancy was down. Grant said if there was another elopement, the state would close the wing. He thought a locked door was safer than an open one. A chained fire exit. I know what it was. Lena's voice cracked on the last word. She wrapped both hands around a coffee cup she had not touched. Arthur started checking it, she continued. He would press his pendant from the East Hall. Grant called them nuisance calls. After the third one, the alerts stopped coming to our handhelds. Did you see who disabled them? No. Will you tell the investigator what you told me? Lena looked toward the window. I have 2 kids and no severance envelope. Evelyn felt the temptation to say that people could die. It would be true, and it would turn Lena's fear into something Evelyn could judge from a safe distance. Instead she asked, May I give the investigator your name? Not yet. All right. You're not going to push? I've had enough of people deciding what someone else should risk. Lena wrote her shift dates on a napkin. She slid it across the table and left without finishing her coffee. Dana Ruiz appeared on Evelyn's laptop that afternoon from a state office with beige walls and a stack of labeled binders behind her. A chained exit can qualify for urgent action, Dana said. A photograph establishes a condition at one moment. The facility says maintenance supervised the door for 9 minutes. They used the chain for 3 weeks. How do you know? Evelyn looked at the napkin beside her keyboard. A staff member gave me the date range but isn't ready to be identified. Then I cannot treat that as a verified statement. Evelyn's frustration rose. If you wait for everyone to feel safe, Grant will make the building look perfect. I expect the building to look perfect when I arrive. That is why I need records that describe what happened before I arrive. The answer stopped Evelyn. Dana was not refusing to act. She was telling Evelyn what kind of action would survive Grant's denial. Evelyn sent the original photograph, not a screenshot, so its metadata remained intact. She supplied camera East 2, the 6:42 time, the pendant serial number, and every date Lena had identified. Dana issued a preservation request to the facility's corporate office while Evelyn was still on the call. I cannot promise an outcome, Dana said. I can tell you the complaint has been moved to immediate review. What does immediate mean? It means I am authorized to preserve records today and determine whether an on-site response is warranted. It does not mean I can arrive with a conclusion. By Friday, Arthur may be gone. His location does not erase the records. It changes who gets treated like the problem. Dana removed her glasses. Miss Carter, I understand the urgency. But if I walk in with an anonymous schedule and a photograph the facility has already explained, Mr. Mercer repairs the door, calls the chain supervised maintenance, and says a terminated employee recruited a confused resident. What happens when I leave? Evelyn had no answer. Give me a timeline that does not depend on any one person being believed, Dana said. Then I can ask why the records agree. The instruction sounded cold. It was also the first useful description of what the state could actually do. At 4:16, a certified letter arrived by email from Magnolia Ridge. Evelyn was prohibited from entering the property except for a scheduled proceeding. Any contact with Arthur regarding placement could be cited as interference. At 4:23, Carla called. Grant moved the transfer up, she said. The van is coming at 8 Friday instead of 10. Evelyn looked at the 3-day space on her calendar. Her first plan had worked well enough to frighten Grant. That made the problem harder, not easier. Grant invited Carla to Magnolia Ridge on Wednesday morning and walked her through the repaired East Corridor. Evelyn learned about the visit afterward, in the same coffee shop where Carla had first shown her the transfer papers. The chain is gone, Carla said. The alarm works. He showed me. That doesn't explain the last 3 weeks. He did explain. A replacement part was delayed. After that woman wandered in January, he couldn't risk anyone else getting out. So he risked everyone being unable to get out. He said the door was chained only during shift handoff with staff in the hall. Lena said 10 at night until 6:30. Lena won't put her name to it. Evelyn pressed her palms against the table. Arthur put his name to it. Dad also called me last month and said someone stole his blue sweater. He was wearing it. That doesn't make the chain imaginary. I didn't say it did. You're signing anyway. Carla looked down. A corner of the Willow Creek transfer agreement showed inside her purse. Evelyn heard Grant's careful phrases in Carla's voice. Appropriate placement, confusion, safety intervention. Her anger found the easiest target. You're letting them move him because believing Grant is more convenient than bringing your father home. Carla's face emptied. You think I haven't pictured bringing him home? My apartment is up 2 flights of stairs. I work 6 days a week. I have a bathtub he can't climb into and a stove he forgets to turn off. Don't you dare confuse what I can't do with what I don't feel. She took the transfer form from her purse, signed the preliminary consent page, and left Evelyn alone with 2 untouched cups of coffee. Evelyn picked up her phone and started an apology. I had no right to say you chose convenience. She deleted it. The sentence felt too small beside the damage, as if naming the line would erase the contempt behind it. She tried again. I am scared for Arthur, but that does not give me the right to judge what you can carry. She saved the message without sending it. An apology delivered only when Evelyn needed Carla's help would be another kind of pressure. For 10 minutes she remained at the table, listening to the milk steamer hiss and watching strangers come through the door. Losing her job had made every delay feel like cowardice. It had not given her the right to turn every person who hesitated into an enemy. Evelyn met Arthur at the public library that afternoon. Carla had agreed to bring him before their argument, then waited in the car. Arthur sat beneath a framed poster of a lighthouse and sorted copies of the incident notes into a neat stack. It says I was agitated, he said. You were angry. There's a difference. I know. Do you? He tapped a line describing him as unable to identify the day. What day did the chain first appear? Evelyn opened her timeline. 3 Mondays ago. Arthur shook his head. Sunday. Lena's dates start Monday night. Then Tuesday. He closed his eyes, searching. Evelyn watched embarrassment work through him. The date isn't the whole truth, she said too quickly. You knew the door was chained. That's what matters. Carla thinks the dates matter. The state will see you're not confused about this. Arthur's eyes opened. And if I'm confused about something else? That's not what we're discussing. You sound like Grant. Evelyn looked down at the incident notes. Grant says your confusion makes the door less important. I'm saying the door proves you aren't confused. Those aren't the same. They both make the door about my head. Then what should it be about? The chain. He gathered the notes, aligning their edges against the table with the careful habit of a man who had once kept repair orders straight. You want me to pass a test before you let me be right. He already gave me one I can't pass. Evelyn wanted to tell him she had risked too much to be compared with Grant. That was precisely why the comparison mattered. The words stung because she could not dismiss them. Before she found an answer, Carla appeared at the end of the aisle holding her phone. The vendor file came. They moved to a study room and opened the export on Carla's laptop. The first columns were ordinary: device serial, resident number, call time, response time. Then Evelyn found a status column marked suppressed. Arthur's pendant had been suppressed at 10:07 on the first night Lena identified. It returned to active status at 6:28 the next morning. The pattern repeated. 10 at night. 6:30 in the morning. Night after night. On Monday, the morning Evelyn was fired, Arthur's pendant had been suppressed at 6:31, 11 minutes before the hallway camera recorded Grant taking it from his hand. Beside every status change was the same administrator code. GM01. Carla whispered, Grant Mercer. Evelyn scrolled slowly, afraid that moving too fast would make the truth disappear. 11 nights. 11 manual changes. The pendant had not malfunctioned. Someone with Grant's code had instructed the system not to send Arthur's calls to the aide's handheld devices. Arthur stared at the red pendant lying on the table. "I promise somebody will answer," he said. "That's what my wife called it when Carla put me here." Carla flinched at the words "put me here." "Dad, I didn't know." "You didn't ask the machine." Carla sat beside him instead of across from him. "When you called about the chain, I should have asked someone to walk me to that door." Arthur did not absolve her. "Yes. I thought checking every claim would make the dementia less real. Checking the door would have made the chain real." Carla nodded. The answer hurt, but she let it remain. Evelyn printed the audit at the library desk. The pages came out warm, each one carrying the serial number she had copied from the pendant. The audit established something Arthur's memory never could on its own. Grant had not simply ignored him after a confused moment. He had used his authority to prevent Arthur from being heard. But the incident notes still described Arthur as unreliable, and Evelyn had already staked her complaint on proving he was not. As Carla gathered the papers, a folded document slipped from her purse. Across the top, Evelyn saw the name of a neurology clinic. Arthur reached it before she could. "That has nothing to do with the door," he said. Carla looked at her father. "It has something to do with Friday." They drove to a small park behind the library, where the benches faced an empty baseball field. Carla placed the neurological assessment between them. Arthur kept his hands in his cardigan pockets. The report was 6 weeks old. It described missed appointments, trouble sequencing tasks, and several brief periods of disorientation. The diagnosis was early vascular dementia. It recommended increased supervision, a medication review, and another capacity assessment in 6 months. It did not say Arthur lacked the ability to make decisions. It did not say memory care was required. But it was real. Evelyn read the first page twice. In her original complaint, she had written that Grant was falsely portraying a mentally clear resident as confused. She had used the word falsely 3 times. "You knew," she said. Arthur watched a dry leaf move along the pavement. "I knew what the doctor called it. You let me tell the state you had no cognitive diagnosis. I never told you that. You let me believe it. Now you know how it feels." Carla rose from the bench. "I'll give you 2 a minute." Evelyn waited until Carla was out of hearing. "I put my job on the line. I didn't ask you to. You asked me to believe you." Arthur turned toward her then. His eyes were wet but steady. "Would you have believed me if I told you?" Evelyn opened her mouth. No answer came that she trusted. Arthur nodded as if silence confirmed something. "First it was the sweater. Then the stove in the activity room. Then I forgot Carla's new address. Every time I was wrong, people asked me one fewer question the next time. Grant stopped asking any. I'm not Grant. You decided what I had to be before you defended me. You decided I was confused. You decided I wasn't allowed to be." He stood and walked toward Carla's car without asking Evelyn to steady him. Evelyn remained on the bench after they left. The audit pages rested on her lap, their timestamps indifferent to her disappointment. She had wanted the conflict to be clean. Arthur told the truth. Grant lied. She believed Arthur, so she was good. Carla doubted him, so Carla was failing him. The report ruined that arrangement. Arthur could forget a date and remember a chain. He could wear the sweater he thought was missing and still recognize that an emergency door had been blocked. His diagnosis made Grant's conduct more serious, not less. Grant had taken the uncertainty surrounding one part of Arthur's life and spread it over everything he said. Evelyn had done the opposite. She had tried to erase every uncertainty so his truth would be easier to defend. Both choices made Arthur smaller. Rain began as a fine mist. Evelyn gathered the pages and walked to the bus shelter at the edge of the park. Arthur sat inside alone. Carla's car was still in the lot, but Carla had given them distance. Evelyn stopped several feet away. "May I sit?" Arthur shrugged. She sat at the far end of the bench. "My complaint is wrong," she said. "The door was chained." "That part is right. The part where I said you were completely clear and Grant invented everything, that's wrong." Arthur's mouth tightened. I'm going to correct it. Then he'll use the correction against you. Probably. Rain clicked against the shelter roof. Evelyn continued. I thought believing you meant I had to make you an easier witness. I'm sorry. Arthur rubbed the pendant cord between his fingers. My wife, June, used to say I could turn being right into a punishment for everybody in the room. She sounds observant. She was usually right, which was very irritating. Evelyn smiled despite herself. Arthur's expression softened. There are mornings I wake up and need a minute to know where I am, he said. There are words I can see in my head but can't get out. I hid the report because I thought the minute you knew, you'd start talking to Carla instead of me. I did talk to Carla instead of you. You're doing it now. What do you want to happen Friday? He answered without delay. I don't want to go to Willow Creek because Grant wants me out of the hallway. If I need more help later, I want that decision to be mine while I can still make it. Then that's the goal. Not proving I remember everything? No. Good. Because I don't. At Evelyn's kitchen table that evening, the case became smaller and stronger. Carla sat on one side, Arthur on the other. Evelyn placed the neurological assessment beside the three evidence elements instead of hiding it beneath them. The photograph showed the chain at 6:39. The security recording showed Grant take Arthur's pendant and Evelyn intervene at 6:42. The vendor audit showed Grant's administrator code suppressed the pendant at 6:31 and on 10 earlier nights. None of those times depended on Arthur naming the correct Tuesday. Carla studied the audit. Grant will say someone else used his code. Then he'll need to explain why he never protected it, Evelyn said. Either he authorized the muting or he allowed an administrator credential to be used 11 times. Arthur pointed to the incident note. He'll say I was trying to escape. The video shows you facing the chain from inside, Evelyn said. And you're going to tell the truth about the diagnosis before he uses it as a surprise. Arthur leaned back. I don't enjoy this plan. That makes two of us. Carla had not apologized for signing the transfer form. Evelyn had not apologized for what she said in the coffee shop. The distance remained, but it no longer controlled the work. They prepared a correction to Evelyn's complaint. It acknowledged Arthur's diagnosis, withdrew the claim that Grant invented his cognitive difficulties, and stated that the documented condition did not explain or excuse a chained exit, suppressed calls, or physical restraint. Evelyn sent it before she could polish away its honesty. Dana replied 20 minutes later. Thank you for correcting the record. The new information does not close the complaint. It changes the questions I will ask. Evelyn read the message aloud. Arthur folded his arms. Better questions? Different ones. That's how they get better. For the first time since the firing, Evelyn did not need Arthur to be flawless or Grant to be a monster. She needed 3 timestamps to remain 3 timestamps. She needed Carla to request a care plan review. She needed Arthur to choose his own support person. And she needed to enter the room Friday willing to tell the truth even where it weakened her. That was a less comfortable plan. It was also the first one built to survive. On Thursday morning, Evelyn wore her only gray suit to an interview at Brookside Home Care. The supervisor asked about lifting limits, medication reminders, and difficult family conversations. Evelyn answered well. By the end, the woman smiled and said they could probably start her the following Monday. Then she stepped out to call Evelyn's previous employer. When she returned, she did not sit. Magnolia Ridge says you are not eligible for rehire and that a resident interference complaint is pending. I filed a safety complaint after I was terminated. They didn't discuss details. Of course they didn't. The supervisor's smile had disappeared. If the state clears your record, please contact us again. How long will you hold the position? We need someone Monday. Outside, Evelyn sat behind the wheel of her car without starting it. She calculated her checking balance, the severance she had refused, and how many weeks remained before her insurance ended. Her phone displayed a new message from Grant. Offer remains open until 5 p.m. today. Neutral reference, 4 weeks pay, withdrawal of complaint against your certification. Arthur's placement can be reconsidered after a 30-day observation period. For the first time, the offer did not look like intimidation. It looked like groceries, medicine, and time. Evelyn asked Grant to meet. He chose an empty conference room at Magnolia Ridge. Dana's authorization allowed Evelyn onto the property for a scheduled proceeding, and Grant treated their meeting as settlement business. The east door alarm chirped as Evelyn passed it. The chain was nowhere in sight. Fresh screw heads gleamed around the new control panel. 2 residents sat nearby working on a jigsaw puzzle. Grant greeted them by name and bent to retrieve a fallen piece. One woman asked whether the Friday movie would still be shown. He promised it would. Evelyn understood why families trusted him. He remembered birthdays, knew which resident needed decaffeinated coffee, and could explain insurance forms without making people feel foolish. His failure did not come from never caring. It came from believing his care entitled him to decide which dangers everyone else had to accept. Grant placed an agreement on the table. Sign today. I'll tell Brookside the complaint was a misunderstanding. And the state complaint? You clarify that the door was secured during a temporary alarm failure and that no resident was harmed. Arthur's calls were suppressed. Arthur made repeated non-emergency calls from a restricted area. The system lets us manage nuisance alerts. Under your code. Grant's eyes shifted just once toward the papers in her hand. You have records you're not authorized to possess. Arthur requested his own data. His daughter requested it while he was under cognitive review. He signed the request. Grant sat back. You think this is simple because you never had to decide where to put 38 people when one door alarm failed. I would not put them behind a chain. 6 months ago, a resident walked out at 3 in the morning. She was found beside the highway in a nightgown. The state gave me one chance to correct it. Then the alarm board failed, the replacement was delayed, and corporate refused a second overnight position. His voice stayed controlled, but the exhaustion beneath it was real. If I reported that wing unsecured, he continued, we would have moved 14 residents with no notice. Some of them have lived here for 7 years. One fractured a hip the last time she changed rooms. So you made a fire trap. I made a temporary barrier with rounds every 15 minutes. Then why silence Arthur? Because every time he pressed that button, the only aide on the floor left the rounds to answer him. He was making the system less safe. He was reporting the system. He was repeating himself. There it was. Not cruelty in its purest form. Something more common and more dangerous. A frightened man with authority deciding that the people beneath his care could be reduced to problems he knew how to manage. Grant turned the agreement toward her. I kept this facility open. You kept it quiet. Sometimes quiet is what keeps frightened families from making a bad situation worse. Did you tell those families the exit was chained? I told them the alarm was under repair. That isn't what I asked. Grant's silence answered. Did you tell Arthur why his pendant stopped calling the aides? He would not have understood the system settings. You never gave him the chance. Evelyn thought of Carla's apartment stairs, of Brookside's withdrawn offer, of Arthur saying he would not go to Willow Creek because Grant wanted him gone. If I sign, Arthur stays? His transfer pauses for 30 days. You receive a clean reference. Everyone gets breathing room. And you decide what happens after 30 days. His clinical team decides. You write their incident notes. Grant's patience thinned. Do not confuse your attachment to one resident with responsibility for an entire building. Evelyn left without signing, but she did not reject the offer. Not yet. At the library that afternoon, she told Arthur and Carla about Brookside. Arthur removed his glasses and cleaned them with the corner of his cardigan. Take the deal. Carla looked at him. Dad. She needs work. I can go to Willow Creek. Is that what you want? Evelyn asked. It is what fixes what I broke. You didn't break the alarm. You got fired because of me. I got fired because Grant needed me to step away and I didn't. Arthur put his glasses back on. Same hallway. Evelyn moved the settlement agreement to the middle of the table. I have spent 4 days telling everyone what you need. I'm done doing that. Arthur looked wary. Tell me what you want even if it makes my situation harder. He took time before answering. I want to stay in my apartment until I decide otherwise. I want Grant to stop using my bad mornings against my good ones. And I want that door to open if somebody smells smoke. Carla stared at the table. I signed because I was scared I'd leave you somewhere unsafe by trying to keep you somewhere familiar. You did leave me somewhere unsafe. I know. Arthur's anger rose, then faltered. He reached across the table. Carla covered his hand with hers. Evelyn felt like an intruder and began gathering the papers. Arthur stopped her. Where are you going? Giving you 2 room. You are in the room. The words were not forgiveness or gratitude. They were a place assigned honestly. Evelyn sat again. Carla withdrew the preliminary transfer consent through the resident portal. Arthur wrote a statement choosing to remain at Magnolia Ridge through the review and asking for Evelyn to attend Friday's care plan meeting as his support person. Grant's offer remained open for 1 more hour. Evelyn folded it once and placed it in her bag. The safest choice had never felt heavier. Lena arrived at the state licensing office at 8 Friday morning, 24 hours before the final review was originally expected and 1 hour before Grant's rescheduled transfer. Evelyn waited in the lobby. She had not promised Lena protection the state could not give. She had only told her that Dana would take a factual statement before the confrontation in private, and that there would be no surprise demand to appear at Magnolia Ridge. Lena almost turned around twice. If I lose my job, she said, you can't fix it. No. I wanted you to say he can't fire me. I know. Lena looked through the glass door toward Dana's office. What if I don't remember every night? Say which ones you remember. What if I followed the instruction? Say that too. Lena gave a short, frightened laugh. You got less comforting. I'm trying to get more honest. She entered Dana's office alone. 40 minutes later, she emerged with reddened eyes and no dramatic announcement. She had confirmed the date range, the overnight rounds, and Grant's instruction that staff treat Arthur's East Hall calls as non-urgent. She had not produced a hidden ledger or claimed to remember exact words from 3 weeks earlier. It was enough to support the evidence already in the file. Dana asked Evelyn into the office after Lena left. Her statement corroborates the overnight practice, Dana said. It is not the foundation of your case. Keep it that way. Because Grant will call her disgruntled. Because no employee should have to carry a case that the facility's own systems can establish. Dana turned the evidence packet around. 3 colored tabs marked the photograph, the audit, and the camera preservation confirmation. I will attend the care meeting as part of the open investigation. I will not decide Arthur's long-term placement. I can address retaliation, blocked exits, and call system practices. Grant moved the van to 8. Then Arthur needs to say whether he consents before 8. Evelyn felt irritation flare again. You make everything sound like a form. Forms are useful when powerful people claim they misunderstood a spoken answer. That was another lesson Evelyn did not enjoy and could use. At Carla's apartment, Arthur signed a 1-page designation naming Evelyn as the person he wanted beside him during his care plan review. He read every line aloud, stumbling only over the word deliberations. That is a ridiculous word, he said. You can cross it out, Carla told him. He did. Above it he wrote discussion. Carla printed her withdrawal of the transfer consent. Evelyn arranged the evidence in order. 631, pendant suppressed under GM01. 639, chained exit photographed. 642, Grant removed the pendant and Evelyn intervened. Then the 10 earlier nights. Arthur placed his neurological assessment on top. Why put that first? Carla asked. Because Grant will, Arthur said. Evelyn nodded. If we hide it, he controls what it means. They rehearsed no speeches. Evelyn asked Arthur the questions Grant was likely to ask. What day was the first chain used? I don't know. Did you repeatedly press the pendant? Yes. Were some calls non-emergencies? Arthur considered that. There was not a fire. I was reporting why a fire would trap us. Do you sometimes become disoriented? Yes. Do you understand where Willow Creek is? A secured memory unit across the county. Do you want to go there this morning? No. Carla reached for his hand. This time he allowed it. While Arthur checked the evidence packet against his list, Evelyn followed Carla into the kitchen. What I said at the coffee shop was cruel. Carla kept her back to the doorway. Which part? That you chose Willow Creek because bringing him home was inconvenient. I took the part of your life you can't change and used it to make you ashamed. Carla rinsed a clean cup beneath the faucet. I wanted to believe Grant because he sounded certain. You were right about that. That doesn't make me right about you. Carla turned off the water. I don't need you to tell me I'm a good daughter. I know. Do you? Evelyn accepted the question. I'm learning. From the dining table, Arthur called. The photograph goes after the call record. 6:31 comes before 6:39. Carla almost smiled. He's been correcting my filing system since I was 12. Maybe let him have this one. They returned to the table. Carla moved the audit to the front without comment. The apology did not erase the signed transfer form or the sentence Evelyn had used as a weapon. It did make room for the three of them to enter Magnolia Ridge without pretending their agreement had been easy. Her phone showed 4:47 Thursday evening on the settlement email because she had never closed the message. The deadline had passed, but Grant had sent a final version that morning, extending it until the scheduled review. She opened it one last time. 4 weeks' pay. Neutral reference. Withdrawn professional complaint. 30 days for Arthur. She could tell herself 30 days was enough to protect him. She could tell herself Dana already had the evidence, so withdrawing would not stop the state. She could sign for the parts that helped and trust someone else to carry the rest. That was the kind of reasoning Grant had used when the alarm failed. Evelyn typed a 2-sentence reply. I decline the agreement. My complaint and corrected statement remain active. She copied Dana, pressed send and turned off her phone. The three of them arrived at Magnolia Ridge at 7:45. A transport van waited beneath the covered entrance. Its rear doors were open. Arthur stopped walking. Carla moved beside him. You don't have to get in. Grant came through the automatic doors holding a blue transfer folder. The meeting has been moved. Willow Creek needs to complete intake before 9. I withdrew consent, Carla said. Your father's escalating conduct creates an immediate placement concern. Arthur's fingers closed around the red pendant. Evelyn saw fear enter his face, and for 1 second she wanted to answer for him. Instead she said, Arthur, what do you want to do? He looked at the van, then at Grant. I want the discussion, he said. The word I can pronounce. Behind them, a dark state sedan turned into the parking lot. Grant's expression did not change. Only the transfer folder in his hand bent slightly beneath his grip. Dana Ruiz entered the lobby carrying one binder. She did not order anyone to step aside or announce that she had come to save Arthur. She asked him his name, the date as he understood it, and whether he wanted to leave with the van. Arthur gave the wrong date by 1 day. Then he said, I do not consent to this transfer. I want Evelyn Carter at my care discussion. Grant opened the blue folder. Mr. Bell's daughter previously authorized placement. Carla handed Dana the withdrawal confirmation. I no longer do. Evelyn presented Arthur's signed designation. The driver closed the van doors. Grant told him to wait. Dana said, the facility can pursue whatever formal placement process its agreement permits. It cannot describe this morning's departure as voluntary. Arthur's decision, supported by the 2 documents he and Carla had deliberately prepared, stopped the van. Dana recorded it, she did not create it. Grant asked the driver to remain because he said, Arthur might change his mind after the meeting. Arthur looked at him. If I change my mind, I'll call another van. The driver glanced away to hide a reaction. No one else spoke. Arthur had not become suddenly eloquent or fearless. His hand still trembled around the pendant. But the answer belonged to him. Grant asked to hold the review in his conference room. Evelyn asked to begin at the east exit. The group walked down the corridor. The silver chain was gone. The new alarm panel glowed green. Grant pressed the bar and a clear warning tone sounded. As you can see, he said, the repair is complete. When was it completed? Dana asked. Tuesday afternoon. And before Tuesday? The door was briefly secured during maintenance with staff present. Evelyn held up her photograph. This was taken Monday at 6:39. Grant barely looked at it. Exactly. During the morning handoff. You said Arthur became agitated and created the safety problem. He was pulling on a door under maintenance. Evelyn opened the vendor audit. His pendant was suppressed at 6:31. Grant's eyes settled on the page. Because of repeated misuse. 8 minutes before the photograph. 11 minutes before you took it from his hand. The system adjustment and the maintenance were related. Then why does the same adjustment appear on 10 earlier nights? Grant turned to Dana. Are you allowing a former employee to conduct this interview? I am allowing the person Mr. Bell selected to present his complaint. You may answer or decline. Grant declined. He said staff had exercised reasonable judgment during a temporary equipment failure. He said no emergency occurred, no resident was injured, and the facility had prevented a second wandering event. His explanation was intelligent because much of it was true. The alarm had failed. A replacement was delayed. A resident had wandered months earlier. Staff had made rounds. The door now worked. Then Evelyn placed the 3 records side by side on a hallway table. A temporary maintenance response would begin with the broken door, she said. This began with disabling the resident who reported it. She touched the audit. 6:31. Then the photograph. 6:39. Then the preserved still from the security recording. 6:42. Seen side by side, the records fixed the order. Only after Evelyn stopped trying to prove Arthur remembered everything did she understand what the times proved. Grant had silenced the call before the confrontation he later blamed on Arthur. Dana asked Grant whether GM01 was assigned to him. It is an executive credential. Who else was authorized to use it? Senior staff may have had access during system maintenance. Please provide their names. Grant looked down the corridor toward his office. I will have to review the access policy. Preserve that policy as well. For the first time, he had no immediate explanation ready. Evelyn did not fill the silence. The timestamps had earned the right to stand without a speech. In the conference room, Grant placed Arthur's neurological assessment in front of Dana. Ms. Carter has manipulated a cognitively impaired resident into resisting necessary care. Evelyn felt the old answer rise inside her. Arthur is not confused. Arthur knows exactly what happened. She let the answer pass. Arthur has early vascular dementia, she said. He sometimes loses dates and he has periods of disorientation. I denied that in my first complaint. I corrected it because I was wrong. Grant leaned forward. Then his account is unreliable. His diagnosis is why you thought nobody would compare it with the machines. Arthur lifted his pendant by its red cord. I forgot whether the first chain was Sunday or Tuesday. I did not forget what a chain is for. The room stayed quiet. Carla pressed her lips together. Arthur lowered the pendant to his chest. Grant turned one page of the assessment and looked toward Dana. Dana reviewed the records in silence. Then she issued immediate written directions. No obstruction of any marked exit, no suppression of resident call devices without documented clinical authorization, preservation of all related records, and no retaliatory transfer connected to the complaint while the review continued. She opened a separate investigation into the use of Grant's administrator code and the accuracy of the incident report. Magnolia Ridge's corporate office would have to name another manager to certify compliance. Grant's face went pale. You could destabilize this entire facility. Evelyn looked at Arthur before answering. Then stabilize it without locking people inside. Dana asked Arthur whether he wished to remain during the corrective period. He glanced at Carla, then Evelyn. For now. After that, I'll decide. It was not a promise that he would never need memory care. It was something more immediate and more difficult to take from him. It was his choice. 2 weeks later, the state's preliminary findings cited Magnolia Ridge for the obstructed exit, undocumented suppression of a resident call device, and retaliation connected to a safety complaint. The corporate office placed Grant on administrative leave pending a licensing hearing. The building did not close overnight. An interim director restored the second overnight position, ordered daily exit checks, and required 2 employees to verify every change to the call system. Lena remained on the overnight shift. She was not promoted or presented as a hero. She helped write the new handoff checklist, and the first time another aide initialed beside her name, she took a photograph for herself. Evelyn's professional complaint was dismissed. Brookside had already hired someone else, so she began taking temporary home care shifts wherever agencies needed coverage. Some weeks were thin. Her health insurance problem did not disappear because she had been right. Carla helped Arthur revise his care plan. He agreed to medication reminders and a new assessment in 6 months. She agreed that no transfer would be discussed without him at the table. They still argued. Arthur accused her of hovering when she called twice in one evening. Carla reminded him that answering once would prevent the second call. Their trust did not return as a grand reconciliation. It returned as a series of questions asked directly and answers allowed to be imperfect. Evelyn visited on Sunday afternoons, no longer in navy scrubs and no longer carrying a staff key. On the second Sunday she apologized to Carla without mentioning the evidence or asking for anything. "I used your limits as proof that you loved him less," Evelyn said. "That was cruel." Carla took a long breath. It was. They stood beside Arthur's half-finished pinochle game while he pretended not to listen. "I also used his diagnosis as a reason not to listen closely enough," Carla said. "We both made him prove something he shouldn't have had to prove." Arthur placed a card on the table. "Are you two finished improving yourselves? Some of us are trying to win." During her third visit, Arthur led her to the east hallway. The repaired alarm panel glowed green. He pressed the red pendant. 9 seconds later, an aide rounded the corner. "Mr. Bell? Do you need help?" Arthur smiled. "Just checking." The aide glanced at Evelyn, then at the pendant. "All right. I'm here if you do." When she had gone, Arthur pushed the emergency bar. The door opened freely and the alarm sounded through the hall. Cool morning air moved across their faces. Arthur did not offer Evelyn the pendant as proof or ask her to speak for him. He wrapped his hand around the red cord and held the door while she stepped beside him. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then they walked into the light together.